The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise, your AML automation software for faster onboarding, smarter monitoring, and growth without overhead. Among these 800-900 people, was there an insider in the audience? Someone who works in an anti-money laundering team, but actually is working with Foxtrot. Welcome to The Laundry, the podcast connecting AML, compliance, and financial crime to the real world, or to Hvitvaskingskonferansen. This week, we are out in the real world among other compliance and financial crime professionals at Hvitvaskingskonferansen, one of the big events in the calendar in Norway. Conferences are more than just a chance to gossip over free coffee. These events really matter for information sharing, finding new strategies to tackle financial crime, and bringing the industry closer together. I'm your host, Marit, CEO of Strise, and in this episode, we are revealing our 3 biggest takeaways from Norway's biggest AML conference. I'm here with my laundry co-host, Fredrik Riiser.
Hello.
And Robin Lycka.
Great to be here with y'all.
Before we get started, why do you think these big conference events matter?
It's a great venue to just meet the industry, see what, both the regulators as well as the public-private collaborations, what's happening, basically take a temp on what's important for AML at the moment in Norway.
I love getting me some of them juicy case studies.
Okay, I'm setting a challenge for us to come back from this 2-day event and share something we think is really important to share with our listeners. So, it's time to split up and go and learn. Are you guys ready?
Right.
Let's go! And we will be back with better audio quality for the rest of the episode.
A few moments later.
Okay, we're now back after 2 big days at Hvitvaskingskonferansen in Norway. You guys are in the studio in Oslo, but I'm here in Helsinki for a different kind of conference, Slush. Robin and Fredrik, we're going to get into your big takeaways shortly, but let's start with the one word that sums up the industry vibe at this year's conference.
Unity.
Money laundering.
Collaboration. And maybe status quo, if I were to pick 2 words. And also, I just want to say that Norway is going to be in the World Cup for the first time in 28 years. Just needed to plug that because it's a big day in Norway today. But Robin, you're up first. Okay, what is your big takeaway from this year's conference?
My takeaway is actually a question. When will we see effective public-private collaboration and sharing? We talk about this topic a lot, but I think we should try and break down the why of this public-private collaboration is such an important issue. Pretty much the first half section of the first day was about collaboration and between government bodies, but also public-private. What are your thoughts, Fredrik?
I agree. There's it was the same theme last year in terms of data sharing, but like you mentioned, Marit, the status quo, it seems to be going slightly forward, but not quick enough.
Yeah, I mean, it was so much talk about collaboration and working groups, and it was just the theme of the year. But a lot of it I've heard before. But then also, I mean, the media afterwards, I've seen a couple of articles today about the collaboration that was mentioned, but I still wish it was like a little bit more tangible, maybe a little bit like, we are going to collaborate in this way, and here is the expected outcome by this date. It was still a bit like opaque and up in the air, in my opinion. Like a lot of working groups, but I was like, when are they working on what? When will the final kind of results be ready? But that was kind of my perception. And also that was kind of like the coffee break chatter as well. But I don't know if that resonates with you.
Yeah, no, likewise. And I think there's a lot of talk going on about federated models or federated learning. Even in transaction monitoring, I don't see any big reason why we haven't been able to do federated transaction monitoring models so far. I don't see anything in particular that has changed. The only catalyst for bringing this up now is, of course, technology. It makes it easier if you can have a federated AI model, but I don't see why that would allow these private sector customers or regulated industries to actually start utilizing such a model.
I think also in terms of, okay, data sharing collaboration, the way it's spoken about, it's not like it's very tangible what data, when, how. I mean, some data now has started being shared with the FYU, between banks and the FYU. That's such a good step. But I really hope that this data sharing doesn't turn into this mastodont governmental IT project. You can do data sharing in such an easy way. It doesn't have to be this comprehensive project getting started with it. It can just be super simple. Okay, all these banks use the same service, KYC service. Okay, how can we just share a little tag, or just a little flag? It doesn't have to be so big. We can get started tomorrow if we got the legislation working for it. So that's kind of my takeaway on this collaboration data sharing. Let's not make it too complicated. Let's just really think, is there capacity today? How can we utilize it? How can we just get started tomorrow?
Yeah, and just to add on to that as well, in terms of at least the Norwegian Data Protection Authority, they keep on recommending banks and financial institutions that they can share more information than they are currently doing. But there are so many people within the banks, especially, that seem a bit unsure, afraid still. But there are plenty of things they could be doing.
No, let's use the capacity that exists today, but just really collaborate with the private vendors as well. How can we get started today? So I really hope it's going to be private vendors will be invited even more into this, and we kind of open up and build the ecosystem in that way, and not just top-down governmental projects. That's my thoughts, at least.
I think one of the fun, polar opposite voices of these collaborations, and someone who's always very tangible and direct in his communication, is Lars from Fair Play Big.
Yes.
Yeah, so for the listeners that don't know Fair Play Big, they're an NGO working to expose I guess workplace crime or workplace related crime and fraud and scams and exploitation of the weak, basically. He's got these great direct examples. One of the things that he said in his thesis was point one: the government and the banks are funding the criminals. And then he just points at the room and he goes, "It's you guys. You're funding the criminals."
Yes.
And it is, in fact, there is truth behind it, because through his examples, he shows how companies are being exploited. There's credit fraud, and credit fraud is, in fact, money stolen from the bank, but it is also funding the criminal activity.
It is. This has been in the Norwegian media so much lately about how criminals are exploiting the social benefits, my favorite, the fake VAT refunds. The government is funding criminal empires. And also in Sweden, criminal organized crime make more money from defrauding the government than from selling drugs. And that should shock everyone. But I still feel it's still people haven't woken up to it yet in Norway. And I did see in the news today, it was a bank who went out and be like, hey, if we as a bank run the way the government runs, trust-based systems, we would be out of business, because we need to put in really effective controls to stop fraud, to stop money laundering. But the government is just not doing the same. And to everyone, okay, fake VAT refunds, that's a passionate thing of mine. And this case that Fair Play presented, there was a company got a shady accountant to change its number so it looked like a really good entrepreneur, in the construction industry. But all they had in terms of transactions on their accounts was 2 transactions, which was paid out VAT from the tax authorities. And they spent this money from the government, and that's clean money. The cleanest money is from the tax authorities, to buy gold coins, to which they used then to bribe this accountant. And they were able to get over €1 million in credit from a bank, which they bought a lot of stuff from and then just fled the country, and the company is now bankrupt. Like, it's so shocking. How is it even possible?
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of a tangent about from the initial topic of public-private sector collaborations, etc. But I think it serves as a good image to what we're hearing at this particular conference. There is the larger picture, strategic helicopter view of things, but there's also those very specific, tangible examples. What can we do to stop this? How can we expose more of this early on? And what can we do to make investigations faster for the FIUs? And how can we improve on reporting?
Talking about improving reporting, it was also this case. I love the like tangible case studies. It was from a bank who have a lot of insurance, like life insurance, those type of insurance products for individuals. And I was shocked that they actually have undercover agents who go out in the field when they expect someone to file like, oh, I've been disabled due to a work accident, so I need that big payout that I have insured myself, so I need that big payout. And they're like, sounds fishy. And it was a case about a guy who said he had hurt his foot at work and he couldn't work anymore and was 100% disabled. So that guy has been getting a lot of social benefit out from the state over years. And then the bank goes out with undercover agents. They film him walking and running, taking a jog, completely normal. So of course, then they have the evidence to not pay out this insurance. And then they say, yeah, we do notify the authorities. But I wish there was like legislative, legal frameworks in place that if a bank who went through all this trouble documenting this, they could report it in, and that could be used, like the government could use that as well to be like, hey, you've been defrauding us for a number of years, and just put an end to it, because I'm sure that this guy will get social benefits paid out for a long time. And it's just so undermining the welfare state, the trust-based society we live in. Is like, oh, I got so angry sitting there watching these cases. But more data sharing in that regard, I guess. Okay, to sum it up, Robin, your key takeaway was around the public-private collaboration and sharing, and we've touched upon quite a few of these now. But Fredrik, what was your big takeaway?
I think my key takeaway is that it's going to get exceptionally harder being a bank moving forward as well. Came straight from Kari Moen, the CEO of Finance Norway, as well, when she was laying out the sheer weight of the new demands. There's more customer due diligence, there's more complex reporting, new data management rules, and it's obviously constantly shifting geopolitical and sanction space. But it wasn't just about this being more paperwork, it's also more responsibility. And what I mean by that is that the trend is that these banks are being pointed out to not just having the compliance function anymore, but they're their primary national security infrastructure in many ways. And we're seeing these blurred lines now between violence and money, or financial crime, I mean. And we're seeing these blurred lines between national and international crime. So violence is a product, and the road between sort of the gangsters beating up people to the ones sitting in the high offices defrauding people is getting exceptionally short, unfortunately.
Yeah, they did touch upon now financial criminals have the capacity for extreme violence, as we've seen from Sweden and now seeping into Norway as well. So definitely. I also think it was quite funny because we brought one of our designers at Strise to this conference to kind of hear, who design how our product should be. And then there was a talk about the newest sanctions package, the new upcoming AML legislation, and it was quite a heavy legal presentation. And he was just like, oh my God, that was so difficult to follow. And it just shows how difficult it is to be a bank now going forward, all these new legislations that you need to adhere to. But I do got to add, it's going to be harder to be a bank that cares, because I mean, you can kind of adopt some frameworks and do those kind of things, but if you truly care about stopping financial crime, truly care about like, okay, let's go above and beyond to put in controls and try to stop this, then it's definitely going to be harder. I caught a ride with someone on the way home who works in a bank, and we talked about these things. And they had now found some legal grounds to close off a customer account. And they were really dreading it. They were like, oh, we're going to get so hard lawyers like from that client towards us. And do we really have the legal grounds? Like, oh, it's going to be hard. So taking the good fight is also extremely hard, even though, of course, everyone do have the right to legal help. But taking the good fight is going to be it's going to be harder. Would you want to be a bank now going forward, Robin, or are you happy being on the vendor side?
Obviously, I think it's going to get harder, but I don't know. With the upcoming AMLR package or the entire package, I think what we're all waiting for is the guidelines to come out. So, like, actually transposing the regulative into a guideline. I think that's when it's going to get interesting, and that's what I told our designer as well. Jürgen, calling you out here. That's what I told him after that entire presentation, which was a lot. But what we're waiting for is the guidelines to come out so we can actually start looking at the specific implementations, like how can we now better identify a complex ownership structure? What kind of rules can we put in place to do that? And just get really specific on things. I think that's going to be the interesting part for us as a tech company when it comes to implementing this. But for the banks, I don't know. It's probably going to be a bit of same, but different.
They talked about AMLA as the new superpower of AML in the EU. I kind of like that. And they're going to staff up to be like 450 people. I'm excited to kind of see that up and running in practice with guidelines and implementing it and see what kind of audits that they will actually do. I'm more excited for it. And also, yeah, I would love to have them on the podcast to come and talk to us about it.
In terms of AMLA, based on not necessarily what I saw on stage, but speaking to the people in the crowd, there's unfortunately, like Robin mentioned now, a lot of waiting. Unfortunately, that leads to a lot of non-decisions happening. A large number of these regulated businesses, they're stuck in limbo at the moment, where they have to wait and see sort of what exactly will the guidelines look like. And it's hard getting buy-in for bigger projects, a large number of them mentioned, and so forth. And that makes a lot of sense, because if they invest a ton now in technology, or they invest a ton in some sort of policy change and so forth to remediate a large book of business, as an example, and then 2027 rolls around and the guidelines or the rules are different than what they actually thought they would end up being, all of that would be wasted.
Sure, it will be interesting to see if people are willing to bet on big projects now and new technology while they wait for the new guidelines. And it will be very critical to kind of then get vendors in who are able to adapt to the new regulatory regime. But for our listeners, if you want a primer on AMLA, please go check out episode 91. But it has two of the policy team behind the setup join us. So please go back to episode 91 for more on AMLA. All right. We will be right back to talk about my big takeaway. Don't go anywhere. Strise turns KYB from a costly burden into an automated winner. But don't just take my word for it. Let's hear what one of Europe's largest payment companies, Vipps Mobile Pay, has to say.
In the olden days, there were people sitting there Googling the company name, all the brand names, the CEO and so on. I think they used more effort into the process than evaluating the outcome, and that's what I'm looking for. I would say Strise definitely helped us improve our productivity. So working more efficiently, working more risk-based, automating repetitive processes, and by this helping us, of course, to decrease costs, but also improve customer satisfaction. Being able to make low-risk decisions automated without long waiting times, that's of course extremely important. Strise, one tool that works in all our markets, that we are able to collaborate, to have streamlined processes, to have optimized processes, to have one tool, one source of truth that is collecting all the input from a lot of other sources, so you don't need to open 3 different tools, but everything consolidated one place. Either you are part of the scalable automation game and work risk-based as everyone else, or you will not survive the competition. Strise is really helping us realizing those ambitions and goals.
Explore the AML Automation Cloud. Visit strise.ai for more information.
Welcome back, listener. Now it's Marit's turn to give us her big takeaway from Hvitvaskingskonferansen. What have you got for us, Marit?
Okay. Well, my big takeaway is it's the people who are going to work on this that matters, because honestly, it was a lot of the same this year. I felt the program was almost identical to last year, and that is fine. It just shows how slow this industry can move, that is really hard to get it right, that it takes time to like really do the groundwork, but then it's so important that you are able to keep the people with the in-depth knowledge in this industry motivated and eager to kind of do the right thing and move this forward. Because even though with the promise of AI around the corner, like you need the people to make those decisions about, okay, what technology to use, like build a culture with people who are willing to go that extra mile, like do the right thing, even if you not necessarily have all the legal grounds for it, or if it's like new legal work to be like, okay, we cannot have this customer anymore, we really, really suspect them, or that you report the same customer like 4 times to the FYU, even though you don't know if it's been looked at or not. Like, it's the people. I really, really think so. And I did feel that the conference was about meeting people, talking to people, building relationships, hearing about what other people are doing, get people excited about the future. For me, the conference was the talk over the coffee machine.
I just found it shocking in terms of, again, talking to the people in the crowd. I think I met like at least 30 people that I talked to this particular topic about, and that was the adoption of AI. Like you mentioned, Marit, the problem is of AI is just like it's right around the corner, but to the level that it's not even discussed, it sounded like, in boardrooms or in sort of the everyday operational setup, it was shocking. And the digital capability gap, or the asymmetric fight against the criminals now utilizing this type of technology. And I know that we, on this particular podcast, go back into talking about AI quite a lot, but it's a game changer, and it doesn't seem like the industry, unfortunately, is adopting quick enough. Is my blunt opinion. I'm actually quite shocked leaving that conference and understanding how little knowledge many of the AML.
Yeah, I think it wasn't, but I mean, it wasn't a big focus on different technologies this year. It was really the high level kind of collaboration, data sharing, what the public bodies are doing, etc. But I do agree to a certain extent. I think what's interesting about this conference compared to a lot of the other AML conferences in the Nordics and UK that I have attended is that it's not a vendor conference, so there's no vendors allowed to present. So I guess that also sets the theme and the topics a bit more. But I do gotta say, like for me, the people, and it was 800-900 people there in Norway working with AML together. I loved being there, and I also like loved the dinner. We had so much fun at the table that I sat at. It's also funny when you come from like Norway is a small place, and there are even smaller places in Norway where you have local banks, etc. And we started joking a lot with like, oh yeah, this guy, we know he's a pep because he's the, you just know people and you know they are a pep because it's so small, not necessarily because of technology and these kinds of things, which is also kind of crazy to think about in 2025. Did you meet a lot of people that you knew from before, Robin, at the conference?
Yeah, obviously. I think we every time we kind of looked across the room, I could see someone or a colleague talking to someone. So it is constant networking for 2 days. But there's an interesting aspect to that, and to Fredrik's point as well. Like, there are a lot of operational people, and then there are a lot of people from the top of the organizations as well that kind of set the tone for what we're supposed to talk about and think about on this conference. So I'm curious to hear, like, what do you think it says about the divide between the people at the top and the operational side of anti-money laundering, and maybe in particular on the subject of adopting AI as well?
That is a good point. That's true. Like the topics were like quite high level, and then there were like a few case studies that was quite tangible, but it did kind of lack that entry level content where it's about, hey, for the operational staff, here is exactly how you can get started. And I mean, not something fluffy. I mean, the super tangible, like, this is a problem that we keep facing in our workflow. Here is how we kind of solved it with AI, or here is how it's not even possible right now, or just, make it super tangible. I wish it was, yeah, I do agree. It did lack a bit of that. So I wish for that next year. But I think when I was, we've talked about this idea before for our podcast. And when I was at this conference, I did think about it like, okay, let's assume it's not 800 AML people here, but let's assume it's 800 money launderers gathering for their annual conference on like updated trends, how to launder more effectively. Like, what would that kind of look like? What would be on their agenda? And is there a match? Like, what do you guys think?
How to spin up a phishing scheme in less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's a fun mental exercise as well, and thinking about like, okay, these are the 2025 trends for laundering money and defrauding people. What type of technologies have been making headways and becoming commercially available for us as an organization to create even more elaborate schemes?
Yeah, and it's also it's a slightly funny plug to the actual name of these conferences. Both the Norwegian one and the Swedish one literally translates to the money laundering conference, not the anti-money laundering conference.
That's actually so funny. And I don't think listeners in the UK appreciate how funny it is, because they have always like anti-money laundering conference. But yeah, it is quite funny. So the name of the conference was actually targeted for the money launderers, but then the anti-money laundering folks showed up in a sense. But just one thing I thought about during this conference as well, because one of the things that was also on the agenda was insiders' threats, that will be a bigger problem going forward. And Axel Humlesjø also said like, oh yeah, Foxtrot are infiltrating banks. And I mean, just a week or two ago, there was another arrest from someone working in a bank who was an insider and gave out loans that they shouldn't have, etc. And I was wondering, among these 900 people, was there an insider in the audience? Someone who works in an anti-money laundering team, but actually is working with Foxtrot or any other criminal networks. I'm gonna leave everyone with that thought, and hopefully there weren't any, but yeah, it's a question to put out there. So with that, this brings the spin of the laundry to an end. Robin, Fredrik, thank you so much for joining me. If people want to find you and connect with you, where would they go?
Fredrik at Strise.ai or my LinkedIn page.
Yep, same. / Robin Lycka on LinkedIn or Robin at Strise.ai.
And also Marit at Strise.ai. And I just want to say, after our Fat F episode, I gotten so many new LinkedIn friends, and I just really, really appreciate it. So guys, if you're listening, please do not hesitate to just connect with us. We really, really, really want to connect more with the industry. And thank you, as always, for spending the time with us and listening to the episode. If you've enjoyed this podcast, go check out the back catalog of more than 140 episodes and follow The Laundry on your podcast platform of choice. And we also really appreciate it if you share this episode with some colleagues, drop it in a group chat, post it on your company's internal comms page. Like, it really helps people to find us. And if you got any ideas for an episode, please do not hesitate to reach out again. Your host for this episode was me, Marit. Our producer was Matthew. Our editor was Dominic. And The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise. We built AML automation software using AI, so please visit strise.ai for more information. See you next time.
Got to put Fredrik's joke in the Easter egg. What was the joke, Fredrik?
Well, in a money laundering conference, the governance function wouldn't be the third line of defense. It would be the third line of offense.
Sure, that kills at the conferences.
The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise, your AML automation software for faster onboarding, smarter monitoring, and growth without overhead.